Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 5.6. Sorry about the darkness in here today. Um, we are going to be showing coordinate planes, so you're going to need to look really closely at the screen for some of our charts on here. Our coordinate planes are four quadrants, so that's why it's a little dark in here so you can see a little better on the board. Well, here's your objective. You will be able to graph ordered pairs on the coordinate plane. Let's take a look. All right, vocabulary, quadrants. Okay, this whole thing right here is your coordinate plane. You have negative and positive numbers all over the place right there. But we have four quadrants. We have quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. It kind of goes backwards in a way. It doesn't go clockwise, it goes counterclockwise. All right, quadrant 1, as you can see in this chart, and this chart's in your book, is positive on the x and positive in the y, this whole area right here, because we have our x and our y, our positive x's and our positive y's. So quadrant 1 is positive and positive x and y. Then we have quadrant 2, which is right over here. As you can see, it's negative in the x's, but still positive in the y's. Moving on to quadrant 3 down here, which is our double negative, really. We have negative x and negative y. So anything in this quadrant is going to have two negatives in their ordered pairs. And our last quadrant is quadrant 4, which is positive in the x but negative in the y. So there are your four quadrants to know. Once again, this is in your chart in the lesson. This chart is in your book for this lesson. And here's some examples of quadrant 1 has a 2, 5 for their coordinates. Quadrant 2 has a negative 2, 5 because it's negative x, positive y. Quadrant 3 has negative negative because it's going to be negative x and negative y. And quadrant 4 has a positive x because it's to the right, but it has a negative y. So you need to look at that chart again. Check out your books for that. All right, here's our first example of a question we're going to do. It says identify the ordered pair that names point C. And don't forget, ordered pairs start with x, and they have a comma, and they have our y. We have to identify point C. Well, we know our letters. That's not C, that's an A, B, E, and D. There's our C. It looks like it's in quadrant what? Think to yourself right now, because we also have to know the quadrant. Well, if it's positive, positive, it's in quadrant 1. So I'm going to write 1 for the quadrant. I'm going to put a semicolon there. All right, now what is going to be our ordered pair? Let's see. Now, I do my x first. Okay, so my x is at half, 1, 1 and a half. So my x is 1 and a half. Notice how the x is counting by halves. 0, half, 1, 1 and a half, 2, 2 and a half. Those could change. Okay, those could change on any graph. It could be counted by ones, twos, could even be counting by fourths. But this one is counting by halves. So my x is 1 and a half. Now I scroll up to my y, and it's only to here. So it goes half, 1. So I can draw a couple lines to meet at point C, and there they are. So my y is simply 1. So I'm in quadrant 1, and my ordered pair is 1 and a half, 1. Now you could do this for all the letters in here if you so desire. If you want to do some practice right now and pause the video, you could figure out where A, B, E, and D is, or whatever you want. That's up to you. All right, number 2. Identify, if you can't read it because it's kind of far away, identify the point located at negative 1 and a half and negative 1. Then identify the quadrant in which it is located. Now, this time, they're giving you the actual coordinates, but you have to figure out what letter they match up with. So once again, we go with x and then y first. So the negative 1 and a half is our x. So I'm going to look at my x line and find negative 1 and a half. My x goes horizontal. So I know I'm negative, so there's a half, there's negative 1, there's negative 1 and a half. There's my starting point for x, right there. Now my y is negative 1. So there's a half, there's negative 1, so it's going to be B. That matches up, those coordinates match B. So the answer would be B, and we are in which quadrant? Let's count. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3. So that would be in quadrant 3. B3, you sunk my battleship. Right there it is. Okay? B in the third quadrant. All right. Now there's something called reflections as well. A reflection, like when you see in the mirror, is right across from you. So reflection is going to be across the coordinate plane. You could be reflected across the y-axis, or it could be reflected across the x-axis. Let's find the reflection for the coordinates -4, 0. So there's -4 and 0, and we're going to find the reflection across the y-axis. So there's -4, 0. The opposite, or reflected, would be 4, 0. Okay? I just reflected across the y, because here's our y right down the middle. Now, I can't reflect this across the x-axis because it's on the x-axis. Okay, so -4, 0 reflected will just be -4, 0, so I guess it's itself. Kind of like, what's the opposite of 0? All right, what if I had 1, -4 as my coordinate plane, or coordinates? So let's go to 1, and then -1, 2, 3, 4. I can reflect this two ways right now. Let's first reflect it across the x-axis. X-axis this time. All right, so if I am 1, -4, it's basically going to come all the way over to +4, and it's still going to be at 1. So the reflection for 1, -4 across the x-axis, I'm struggling to say that word, is 1, this time +4. That reflects over there. Now if I'm going to reflect 1, -4 across the y-axis, I'm going to just go right there. I'm switching my axis. And when you reflect across an axis, you are just switching the one number of that axis. This time I did the y, so that's why my x is going to change, but my y is going to stay the same. So this coordinate right here would be, my x is going to be -1, and my y is going to be 4. Sorry, -4, because I'm in quadrant 3. Both are going to be negative. Okay, so notice how there's my original coordinate right there. When I reflected across the x, I changed just my y. When I reflect across the y, I change my x, and my y stays the same. You might have to rewind. That sounds kind of confusing. You might need to rewind and see that a couple times, but if you're a little confused, we'll go over it in class. Alright, so now you have a job for me to do. Now this is on page 398 if you can't see it that well, and I'll even move the computer a little closer so you can get a better look. But it says, identify the ordered pair that names each point or the name of each point. Then identify the quadrant in which is located. So the first question is number 1 is, where is letter T on this chart? So you have to look through here and find T. You might not be able to see it, but I'll bring the camera in a second. And then number 2 is, find -1.5, 0. What letter is that, and what quadrant? Then you have number 3, -2, 2.5. Which letter is that? So I'm going to bring the computer a little bit closer now. Once again, if you do have your books at home, this is on page 398. Take a look at the questions. Keep in mind that on this coordinate plane, you're counting by halves again. So if that's 0 right there, that is a positive half on the x. That's a positive 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Okay, so this is counting by halves. So I hope you could see that. You might need to take a pause right about here. All right, and then answer these questions. Thanks so much. See you soon.